Hello students, you are welcome back to this section. In today's video, we are looking at time value of money. So if you are a new person on this channel, kindly make sure to subscribe, like and share. And if you are a returning subscriber, thanks for joining us once again. So without wasting more time, let's move on to our topic for today, time value of money. Now, time value of money. What is time value of money? We are saying that time value of money is one of the key concepts in finance, which states that the value of money changes over time. It states that the value of money changes over time. To explain further, time value of money has to do with the present value of money. You are saying that the present value of money, for the time value of money, the present value of money is worth more than the stated sum of money going to receive in the future if not invested. Get it right. Time value of money has to do with where the present sum of money is worth more than the same money to be received in the future if not invested. So the underlying word here is what? If not invested. If not invested. If not what? Not invested. That is when the present value become greater than what? The future value. So PV becomes greater than FV. So that is the concept. So what is the present value? Present value, we are talking about what? The discounted future cash flows of an investment. The discounted future cash flows of an investment that you expected to receive for a particular period of time. So with present value, you're talking about now, the value of money as at now. That is the present value. With the future value, we are talking about the stated sum of money to be received, whether compounded based on the compounding period to be received in the future. Is that okay? Whether it's a payment or receipt in that form. So that is the future value. You're talking about the stated sum of money to be received in the future. To be received in some years to come. That is the future value. So with time value of money, as we have defined, is a key concept in finance which states that the present value of money now is worth more than the same sum of money to be received in the future if not invested. So let's take note of this. That's the time value of money. So with the time value of money, as we have said as in a concept in finance, it works best when these factors come into play. It works best when these factors come into play. There are three factors that underpin the concept of time value of money. And these are one what we call the time itself, the time. Then we have returns. And then lastly we have risk. These are the factors that are pivotal when it comes to the time value of money. How we maximize the value of money now and in the future. These factors are pivotal and they are very key when it comes to time value of money. The time itself, we are talking about if you have money now, let's say you have 100 Ghana cedis, or let's say you have $100. If you have $100 now, that is the time you can spend it, right? Can't you say you can spend it? So you can spend it on, let's say, on goods and or services. Is that okay? Or you can even engage on using or engage in, let's say, in an investment form. That is fine. That is the time it's going to present you to know how to use that stated sum of money that you have now. So with time, it will help us to know how to utilize the fund that we have or the money that we have as at now. So it presents us with a lot of opportunities to utilize this money or this source of fund. Either we spend it on goods and services or we engage it in an investment where we can earn some returns. That is where the returns also comes in. So returns, we are talking about the financial reward that is obtained from making an investment. So returns, we are talking about the financial reward that an investor obtains from making an investment. So let's say, as I've indicated, you had $100. You have $100 now, and you don't want to keep this $100 under your pillow, okay, or under your mattress, and you want to invest it. The idea is that for a certain period of time in future, you are going to earn an amount of 100 plus other earnings because you have engaged that $100 in an investment fund, and they're going to earn some form of what returns, and that's what we call what returns, as a financial reward that an individual investor gain from making what an investment. So that is the returns in that. So returns always has to do with the present value of money that you have now plus any future earnings are going to earn from the investment that you make with your present value of money that you have with what now. So in short, it's the financial reward that investor gain from making an investment. Is that okay? So that is returns. And risks, we are talking about the possibility that your actual return may be different from the expected what return that you want. So risk is one of the key factor in time value of money and investment. Risk, we are talking about what the comparison of the actual returns and then the expected returns. So if the expected returns is more than the actual returns, then the whole idea is that you'll be able to make some good earnings or some good returns. But then if the actual returns that you have is lesser than what you expect, then there has been some form of what a loss. So risk is one of the key factor when it comes to time value of money to determine whether the investment that you engage on is worth it or not worth it. So risk factor here, as we have analyzed, okay, so as we said, you have the $100 now here, and we are talking about risk factor here. And then if let's say we have two individuals, let's say A and what B, they all have what $100. They all have $100, and B also have $100. Now the risk factor comes in here where let's say part A, for him, one, he was having $100, he made an investment in certain organizations that earns him, let's say 10% of interest. But the part B just kept his own money under his pillow and slept on it. What happened? So let's say for 1 year period, right? The one who made an investment with 10% will earn an amount of the same hundreds that he was having now plus 10% what interest. But the one that kept the party that kept his own under his pillow will lose, because at that time that becomes the interest factor when it comes to the risk. That becomes the interest factor. So in this case, part A will gain, but part B will lose. Is that okay? When it comes to the purchasing power, asset after 1 year, when it comes to purchasing power after 1 year, you realize that part A has more purchasing power than part B, because at that time, if let's say bundle of goods and services was let's assume that the bundle of goods and services was let's say 80 cedis. Now it's worth what 80 cedis. Now with part A, he can get a bundle of goods and services more because he's having what his stated sum of money he invested and then the interest that he earned from that investment. But with part B, you only take $80 from his amount, okay, and then if let's say you want to engage in a buying of goods and services, that 80, but you're going to be left with what 20. But then with this part A is going to be left with 20 plus 10% interest that is going to end on the 100, and that becomes much more worth than that of part B. So meaning that part A has a greater purchasing power as against part B. And let's say all that also to be equal, at the end of the day, the bundle of goods and services was once let's say 80, let's say was around where 110. So meaning that at that spot, part B cannot have that purchasing power. Cannot have that purchasing power, because as at that time his value of money he's having is 100 cedis, so it's going to reduce, and that's what we call inflation in risk. So in that case, you realize that part B is having just 100 cedis, but part A, because of the investment that he make with that 100 cedis, that earns him an interest of 10%, and for part A is going to have a greater purchasing power as compared to part B, and part B is going to lose. He wouldn't be able to make purchases because at that time the value that he have after 1 year, which is 100, because he kept under his pillow, is going to be the same. It won't change. But then part A, that invested that 100 cedis in an investment fund or project, will have purchasing power because it will be able to what, buy that item, all things what being equal. So at that time, party B will lose because inflation will erode its purchasing what power, but party A will what gain. So that is the risk factor. That is a risk factor. So risk factor takes into account even the returns, okay, the time factor, and then the time itself is very key when it comes to risk factor. So these are the things that you also need to understand when it comes to the time value of money as a factor that we need to consider in that case. So that is the concept about time value of money, okay? That is the concept about time value of money. Time value of money. Now, when it comes to time value of money, okay, there is a general or a formula that we use to estimate the value of money, how we maximize the value of money, all things being equal, how we maximize the value of money. There is a way that finance people are able to develop models that helps investors to able to make estimations of an investment, right, based on the present value and then the future value of comparable what investment that they can what undertake to earn what interest or better what earnings in that case. So when it comes to time value of money, generally these are the key factors that you also see, or as a parameter that you also see in a calculation of what time value of money. We have what we call the future value, future value, right? You also have present value, then you have the interest, the interest. We also have N, we're talking about the compounding period, the number of compounding periods. So the compounding period, and we have T as the time factor here that we are talking about. So generally, in every time value of money calculation that you see, these are the parameters going to see. Okay, so future value, as we have indicated, with future value, we are talking about what? The stated sum of money that is going to be received for a particular period of time in future, or for a later time. Let's put it in that way. Future value, we are talking about stated sum of money to be received in a particular time, not now, okay, for certain agreement based on the investment factor. If let's say it's compounded, and based on the compounding period, we'll get into what compounding periods are. Is that okay? So that is the concept that we need to know. So with the future value, we are talking about the amount that you're going to earn for a certain period of time in the future. Is that okay? So that is future value. So when it comes to present value, we are talking about what? The discounted future cash flows. When you discount future cash flows into present terms, that is where we have the present value. So what you have now becomes the present value of that money, or that's an investment. If let's say it's an investment, what you have now will determine the investment that you're going to go through, and that's what we call the present value. So we are talking about the future discounted of future cash flows, where we discount future cash flows into present terms, then we have our present value. So that is that. And interest, as we've indicated, is the returns on your present value that you engage on in an investment. The returns on the present value you get in the investment. And the compounding period, so we're talking about the spread. Take into account the time factor that investment is being compounded, whether it's compounded annually, semi-annually, quarterly, or anyhow, based on the investment terms that will determine the compounding period. So that becomes the compounding. And the time factor, as you have indicated, you're talking about the period upon which that investment is going to last, right? Upon which you're going to receive your present value, your stated sum of money, and even the future value. So please get this right. The present value at times can turn itself to become the principal for a particular period. It depends. It depends on the investment that you are making. So the present value you have indicated, you are talking about the discounted future cash flows into present terms. That's what we call the present value. So you need to be careful with present value and then the principal. But if you have money now, that becomes your principal. Is that okay? But if you are comparing investment, looking at two or more investment and you want to discount them into their present terms, that's where you have the present value of such investment. And time value is key factor that help us to do these calculations. Okay, so let's take note of that. Now, generally, when it comes to calculation of time value of money, if not annuity, so as I was indicated, when it comes to time value of money calculations, okay, if it is for annuity or perpetuity, we're going to have certain other factors that will comes in. The formula that we're going to define, the general formula, is not exhaustive. If it connects, or the situation that we are describing is connected to annuity or perpetuity, you have other few factors that you need to link up with the formula. So generally, we will get into annuity and perpetuity, I think, in our next video that we do that. So for now, you just keep the names. Okay, so when we get there, I will explain much more better in that. So when it comes to the calculation of what the present value in terms of the future value, the present value, interest, and those stuff, this is the general formula for it. For us to calculate the future value of, let's say, an investment, you always make an indication that future value is equal to the present value, okay, into brackets, multiplied by the future value factor. And what is the future value factor you are talking about here? So the future value factor here is going to be I, okay, that is the interest, 1 plus I, which is the interest, okay, then to the power of what? N, multiply by what? T. But here too, we also divide it by what? N. At times, if the compounding periods that we are talking about is, let's say, semi-annually, quarterly, but if there is yearly, then automatically your future value, if it is annually, your future value is going to be your present value into brackets 1 plus the interest, which is I, okay, to the power of what? Just the N. So that is all for that one. If it's annually, just that percentage, and it's 1 year, so no problem with that. But then if they are telling you it is compounded, let's say semi-annually, quarterly, or in daily, monthly, or those stuff, you should be able to divide the compounding period as we have defined by the interest, so that we know the interest that is received or paid based on the compounding period that we have defined. I hope that. So generally, that is the formula in that case. So in simple terms, future value is going to be our present value to bracket 1 plus the interest divided by the compounding periods, and to the power of the compounding period multiplied by what? The time factor. I hope that is clear. So this is the formula for the future value. So here too, the same formula, you can do change of subject, okay, by making substitution to the various terms that you want to find. So with the change of subject, you can find the future value, you can find the present value, you can find the number of compounding periods, you can find the time, you can find the interest, and those stuff. Okay, so just change of subject and you are good to go in that case. So in that case, you can say that our present value too is going to be the future value. Okay, just divide the whole of the future value factor by the future value. So it's going to be to bracket 1 plus the interest divided by the compounding periods, and to the power of the compounding period multiplied by what? T. And that becomes your present value. We are discounting future cash flows into present terms, so that becomes your present value. I hope that is clear. So let's take some examples to clarify this concept that we are building. Let's take an example to clarify this concept we are building. Now, let's say we have, or let's assume that we have a sum of money, let's say 10,000, okay, a sum of money worth what, $10,000. Okay, and we have invested $10,000 in a project that earns at 10% interest compounded, let's say annually. Compound, let's say what, annually. What is going to be the future value of this investment? What is going to be the future value of it? So you realize that the present value of this investment, is what, $10,000. Okay, and then the time factor that you have been given, or the time duration that you have been given, is what, 1 year. And then the interest that we are to earn is what, 10%. Okay, so meaning that here the compounding period is what, annually, so it's just what, 1. So I can say n is equal to what, 1. So that's the compounding what, period. I hope that is clear. Good. So in this case, I can say that therefore my future value is going to be my present value into brackets 1 plus the interest divided by compounding period into bracket n multiplied by 2. So it's a matter of what, substitution. Okay, so I know my present value to be what, 10,000. Okay, into bracket 1 plus, I know the interest is what, 10%, and I know the compounding period is what, 1. Okay, compounding period is 1. Then I know time is what, I know compounding period is 1. Then time is what, also what, 1. So the compounding period is what we always determine as, let's say, annually, semi-annually, quarterly, monthly, or daily. So once you heard of that, just flow with it, and that's all. So at the end of the day, we should have our future value to be what, 11,000 in that case, $11,000 in that case. So let's take note of that. So this is just a snapshot video for time value of money. So in our next video, we dive deeper to explain more and even solve more examples in relation to time value of money. So as you have already started with, investors always will prefer money today or money now better than money to receive in the future, because of what, the time factor, because of the returns associated with it, and because of the risk factor. And the key thing that we will even look at is the risk factor, the returns, and the time. And that is the concept of time value of money. So if you really enjoyed this video, please go ahead to subscribe and make sure to like this video and share with your friends so that we can get more engagement on this channel. So I will see you in the next video, where we solve more examples and even dive deeper to explain the concept of a time value of money and other concepts in relation to time value of money. Bye bye.